Laura Benson was 48 when she realized her life had quietly slipped into something she never meant it to be. The mornings were always the same. Coffee alone at the kitchen counter, a quick glance at the silent phone, and then hours spent managing a home that no longer felt alive. Her husband, David, left early and came home late, offering little more than polite nods and tired questions about bills or groceries. Their conversations had become short and hollow, more like reminders between roommates than love between partners. Once, years ago, they had laughed easily. She could still remember the days when they'd go on long drives to the coast, with David singing off-key just to make her laugh. But those memories felt like they belonged to someone else. Somewhere along the line, their connection had faded, replaced by silence that grew heavier with every passing day. Their son, Ethan, had been her one bright spot. At 23, he was everything she once wanted to be, creative, confident, and full of hope. After finishing art school in Portland, he'd moved back home to Seattle to save money and start building his career as a photographer. Laura was proud of him, even if she sometimes felt guilty for depending on his company more than a mother should. One afternoon, Laura was washing dishes when Ethan entered the kitchen, camera straps slung around his neck, and his face lit with excitement. "Mom," he said, leaning against the counter, "I'm starting a new photography project. I want to take portraits of people rediscovering themselves." Laura smiled, thinking it was a lovely idea. "That sounds wonderful, honey. You've always had such an eye for people." He nodded, then said something that caught her off guard. "You should be my first subject." She froze, dish towel in hand. "Me?" Ethan grinned. "Why not? You're perfect for it." She laughed, shaking her head. "Oh, Ethan, I'm too old for all that. Find someone your age, someone interesting." He didn't back down. "That's exactly why I want to start with you," he said. "You've lived. That shows in your face, in your eyes. That's what makes someone interesting." Laura didn't know how to respond. No one had spoken to her like that in years, as if she were someone worth looking at, someone who mattered. She tried to brush it off, but his words followed her through the rest of the day. That night, as she prepared dinner, she caught her reflection in the kitchen window. The woman staring back at her looked tired, but not lost. Maybe there was still a spark of who she used to be. The next morning, Ethan asked again. "Come on, Mom, just one session. I'll handle everything." After a long pause, she smiled softly. "All right, just one." Ethan set up his lights and backdrop in the living room, transforming the space into a mini studio. Laura felt awkward standing in front of the camera. She didn't know what to do with her hands, where to look, how to smile. "This feels silly," she said, crossing her arms. "Just breathe," Ethan said kindly. "Don't pose, just be you." He adjusted the lights until they cast a warm glow over her. Then, quietly, he turned on an old record, one she hadn't heard in years. The gentle crackle of the vinyl filled the room, followed by a familiar tune that struck her heart instantly. It was the same song she and David had danced to on their honeymoon. Laura felt something stir inside her. Memories came flooding back. The young woman she once was, laughing barefoot in the sand, believing that love could fix anything. She blinked hard and forced a smile, but Ethan noticed. "Hey," he said softly. "You don't have to pretend. Just look at me. Be yourself." She looked up, meeting her son's kind, steady eyes through the lens. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. He clicked the shutter again and again. Sometimes he'd say, "Turn your head just a little," or "Think of something that makes you happy." She did, and slowly she relaxed. The laughter came naturally then, light and genuine. After a while, Ethan lowered the camera. "Want to see?" he asked. Laura nodded nervously and walked over. When she saw the images on his screen, she gasped. The woman in the pictures looked alive. Her smile reached her eyes. There were lines, yes, and a softness time had left behind, but she looked radiant, strong, human. "That can't be me," she whispered. Ethan smiled. "It's exactly you. You just forgot what you looked like." Something warm spread through her chest. She hadn't felt proud of herself in a long time, but in that moment, she did. Not because she looked perfect, but because she looked real. That night, Laura sat on her bed scrolling through the photos on her phone. She couldn't stop staring at them. It was strange. She didn't see flaws anymore. She saw someone who had survived heartbreak, motherhood, disappointment, and still stood tall. When David came home late, she wanted to show him, to share that tiny piece of joy. "Look," she said with a hopeful smile, holding out her phone. "Ethan took some photos of me today." He glanced briefly, nodded, and said, "Nice. Did you make dinner?" Her smile faded. "Yes, it's in the kitchen." David went upstairs without another word. The quiet that followed felt heavier than ever. Laura stood there for a moment, phone in hand, realizing how quickly excitement could turn to emptiness. She looked back at the photo of herself, that bright, confident woman, and wondered where she'd gone wrong. How had she become invisible in her own marriage? Later that night, while Ethan was editing photos in his room, Laura knocked softly on his door. "Thank you, sweetheart," she said, "for doing this." He smiled, eyes tired from the screen's glow. "You did great, Mom. You should see yourself the way everyone else does." She nodded quietly. "I'm starting to." Back in her room, she stood before the mirror. The same reflection stared back. Same face, same wrinkles, same tired eyes. But something had changed inside her. Ethan's photos had shown her that beauty wasn't about age or perfection. It was about still being able to feel. The next morning, she woke up earlier than usual, brewed her coffee, and watched the sunrise from the porch. The air was cool and still. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of calm. She didn't know what would happen next with her marriage, her future, or even her heart. But she knew one thing: she was ready to be seen again. She didn't realize it then, but that one afternoon with her son's camera had started something much bigger. It wasn't just a photo project. It was the first crack of light in the dark shell she had built around herself. And soon, that light would reveal truths she had never been ready to face. The forgotten woman was beginning to remember. The next day, sunlight filled the Benson home as Ethan prepared for another round of photos. He'd brought home new lighting equipment, excited to capture different moods. Laura, still unsure about being in front of the camera again, hesitated at the doorway. She held her coffee mug close, watching her son move around with purpose and confidence. "Come on, Mom," he said cheerfully. "Let's do a few more shots. You were amazing yesterday." Laura smiled shyly. "I don't know, Ethan. One session was enough. I'm not a model." "You're not supposed to be," he said, grinning. "You're supposed to be you. That's what makes it special." Something about his tone made her agree. Maybe it was his genuine belief in her. Or maybe she just wanted to feel alive again. Either way, she found herself standing in front of his camera once more. This time, Ethan asked her to wear something simple. A soft cream sweater and jeans. No makeup, no posing, just natural light and real emotion. He played quiet background music while adjusting his lens. "Okay," he said. "Just look out the window for a second. Think about something that makes you happy." Laura turned her head slightly, the morning light touching her face. Her expression softened. The camera clicked again and again. "Beautiful," Ethan murmured. She laughed a little. "You always say that 'cause it's true," he replied. As the photos went on, Laura began to relax. She stopped thinking about how she looked and started to enjoy the process. The sound of the shutter became comforting, a soft rhythm that made her feel present. She moved, smiled, even joked around. At one point, Ethan said, "Close your eyes. Take a deep breath." She did. And in that still moment, something inside her shifted. It wasn't about beauty anymore. It was about being seen, really seen for the first time in years. When they finished, she sat beside him as he scrolled through the pictures on his laptop. The images were stunning. Her face glowed with a quiet strength. Her eyes looked softer, but alive. "Is that really how I look?" she asked. Ethan smiled. "That's how you've always looked. You just forgot." Laura felt her heart swell with a mix of gratitude and sadness. She hadn't realized how much she had missed feeling confident. That evening, she looked through the photos again after dinner. Each image told a story of a woman rediscovering herself, of time passing but not erasing her spirit. She wanted to show them to David, to share that small spark of pride when he came home tired and distracted. She met him in the hallway. "Ethan took some beautiful photos today," she said, smiling. He glanced up briefly. "That's nice," he said, loosening his tie. "Did you get the car serviced?" Her smile faded. "Yes," she said softly. David nodded, kissed her on the forehead, and walked upstairs. It wasn't anger that filled her. It was emptiness. A quiet, familiar ache that no words could fix. Later, Ethan came downstairs, sensing something was wrong. "He didn't say anything, did he?" Laura shook her head. "He's just busy." Ethan sighed. "He doesn't see it, Mom. He doesn't see you." His kind eyes were full of worry. "It's been a long marriage," she said. "Sometimes people grow apart." Ethan didn't answer, but his silence said enough. The next few days, Laura noticed the change in herself. She started dressing better, fixing her hair, even going out for walks again. Neighbors greeted her, surprised by the light in her eyes. She smiled easily now. The photos had awakened something that sleep and silence had buried for years. Ethan continued his photography project, taking portraits of other people in the neighborhood. He showed them Laura's pictures with her permission as an example of natural emotion. People loved them. They said her face told a story. One afternoon, Ethan got a message from an online magazine asking if they could feature his rediscovery project. When he told Laura, she was thrilled. "They loved your portraits," he said. "They said, your photos have something raw, something real." She felt shy about it, but secretly proud. "That's wonderful, Ethan. I'm so proud of you." But inside, she couldn't help feeling a strange mix of joy and sorrow. The whole world could see her, but her husband could not. That night, as she folded laundry in the quiet house, she heard David talking on the phone in his office. His voice was soft, different, gentle, almost tender. The tone stopped her cold. She paused outside the door. His words were low, but clear enough. "I can't talk long," he said. "She's here." Laura's stomach tightened. The rest of the conversation was too quiet to hear, but that one sentence echoed through her like thunder. She stepped back quietly, heart pounding. She didn't want to believe what her mind was already whispering. She told herself it was probably work-related, that she was being paranoid. Still, that faint trembling feeling in her chest refused to calm down. The next morning, she smiled as usual, pretending nothing had changed. Ethan was in the kitchen editing photos. He looked up and said, "Mom, people online love your pictures. They say you look like someone who found herself again." Laura smiled, hiding the storm in her heart. "Maybe I did," she said softly. That afternoon, they attended a small art gathering in the city. Ethan's photos were displayed alongside others, a collection of faces, each with a story behind it. Laura stood quietly, looking at her own portrait on the wall. Beneath it was a small card that read, "A woman remembering who she is." Something about that caption broke her open. She stared at her own face, calm, strong, and a little sad. She realized she had spent years forgetting herself, waiting for someone else to remind her that she mattered. When Ethan joined her, she said quietly, "You've given me a gift I didn't know I needed." He smiled. "You gave it to yourself, Mom. I just took the picture." As they drove home that night, city lights reflecting in the car windows, Laura felt both proud and uncertain. She was rediscovering her confidence, but also beginning to see the cracks in her marriage more clearly. The more she remembered who she was, the harder it became to ignore how unseen she had been for years. When they reached home, David was asleep on the couch. The television hummed quietly in the background. Laura stood there watching him. Once, she had loved this man more than anything. Now she wasn't sure what was left between them. She turned off the TV and covered him with a blanket. Then, before going upstairs, she looked at the photo hanging on the hallway wall. One of Ethan's shots of her smiling. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible, but deep inside, she knew something was about to change. The photographs had opened her eyes, and once open, they could never close again. Ethan's photography project quickly gained attention. What started as a few portraits at home turned into something bigger. People loved the honesty in his photos, real faces, real emotions. But among all the portraits, Laura's stood out the most. Her picture had something others didn't. A quiet story written in her eyes. The photo of her smiling faintly against the warm light began spreading online. Strangers left comments calling her graceful, strong, and beautifully human. Laura didn't know how to handle it at first. She hadn't been the center of attention in years, but every kind message made her feel seen, almost alive again. Ethan showed her the responses on his laptop one evening. "They love you, Mom," he said proudly. "People say your photo makes them feel hopeful." Laura smiled, but shook her head. "It's your work, Ethan. You captured something I couldn't see myself." Ethan looked at her carefully. "No, Mom, I just showed what was already there." The words touched her. For weeks, she had felt lighter, brighter. She started wearing colors again, cooking new dishes, even humming while cleaning. Small things she hadn't done in years. But every time she looked at David, the gap between them felt wider. He didn't ask about the photos, didn't compliment her, didn't even seem to notice that the world saw beauty in the woman he ignored. One Sunday evening, David mentioned he had another work trip. He didn't say where, just that he'd be gone for 2 days. Laura nodded, pretending not to notice how quickly he packed or how he smiled faintly at his phone before leaving. She told herself not to assume things. Still, the ache in her chest wouldn't leave. That night, Ethan suggested a walk by the lake. The summer air was cool, the city lights soft against the dark water. They walked quietly for a while until Ethan stopped and turned to her. "Mom," he said gently. "Can I tell you something?" Laura nodded, unsure. "I didn't choose you for my first photo just because you're my mom," he said. "I chose you because I saw something missing. You used to be so full of life, but somewhere along the way, you stopped believing in yourself. I wanted you to see what I see." She stared at him, heart tightening. "What do you see, Ethan?" He smiled softly. "I see a woman who deserves more than she's been given. A woman who's still beautiful, still strong, even after everything." Laura blinked fast, tears filling her eyes. She wasn't used to hearing words like that anymore. "You're too kind," she whispered. "It's not kindness," Ethan said. "It's the truth." They stood there for a long time, watching the reflections ripple across the lake. Laura didn't speak, but her heart felt heavy with gratitude and sadness all at once. She was proud of her son, proud that he had grown into someone who could see people's hearts so clearly. but deep down, she also felt the sting of realization. Her own husband hadn't seen her that way in years. When they got home, David's absence was painfully obvious. His jacket wasn't on the hook, his slippers missing from the floor. The silence of the house was sharper somehow. Laura sat at the kitchen table, tracing her fingers around her coffee mug. Ethan came in quietly. "You okay?" She nodded. "I'm fine, just thinking." But she wasn't fine. That night, when Ethan had gone to bed, Laura opened her laptop and looked through the photos again. Her face stared back, peaceful, strong, but carrying a sadness even she hadn't noticed before. She realized those pictures had captured more than beauty. They had captured loneliness. The next morning, she met her friend Emily for coffee downtown. Emily had seen the photos online and couldn't stop talking about them. "Laura, you look amazing. I mean, truly stunning." And that caption, "A woman remembering herself," it gave me chills. Laura smiled politely. "Thank you, Emily. It was all Ethan's idea." Emily hesitated. "Can I be honest? I know it's none of my business, but you don't seem happy with David anymore." Laura's smile faded. "It's complicated," she said quietly. Emily nodded, sipping her coffee. "You deserve to feel loved, Laura. Don't forget that." Those words stayed with her all day. She had always believed marriage meant patience, forgiveness, and endurance. But now she began to wonder, what if endurance had turned into silence? What if love had turned into habit? That evening, Ethan called her into the living room. "Mom, come see this." He had edited a short video montage for his photography portfolio. It opened with clips of light, laughter, and people smiling. Then came her photos, one after another, set to gentle piano music. Her face filled the screen, glowing with emotion. When it ended, she couldn't speak. "Ethan, that's beautiful," she finally said, her voice trembling. He smiled. "You inspired it. You helped me find my art again." Laura hugged him tightly. She hadn't realized how much she needed that embrace, pure, unconditional love. But later that night, as she walked past David's study, she noticed something strange. His computer screen was still on. She wasn't trying to snoop, but when she glanced at it, an email notification flashed briefly. A woman's name she didn't recognize, Rachel. The subject line read, "Can't stop thinking about last weekend." Her heart stopped. She stepped back, gripping the doorframe. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. She turned off the screen quickly, her hands shaking. She wanted to believe it was innocent. A colleague, a misunderstanding. But the unease she'd been ignoring for months suddenly made sense. That night, Laura couldn't sleep. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, hearing Ethan's words echo in her mind. "You deserve more than you've been given." In the morning, David returned home early, acting as if everything was normal. "Good trip?" she asked calmly. He nodded, avoiding her eyes. "Busy, but fine." Laura said nothing. She simply watched him move around the kitchen, speaking in short sentences, smiling when necessary, pretending everything was fine. Ethan came in later, showing her a printed copy of her portrait that was going to be featured in a local art magazine. "Look, Mom, they're publishing your photo." Laura smiled softly, holding the image in her hands. There she was, strong, composed, beautiful. And in that moment, she understood something important. She didn't need validation from David anymore. The love she had given to others, to her family, to her home. She needed to start giving to herself. That night, Ethan found her sitting on the porch, the photo resting on her lap. "You okay?" he asked. She looked up and smiled faintly. "I think I'm learning how to be." The sky was quiet, the air cool, and though pain still lingered in her heart, something new had begun to grow. A calm strength born not from what she had lost, but from what she was finally finding again, herself. What she didn't know was that soon, the truth she feared most would no longer hide in shadows. The photograph that helped her rediscover herself was about to uncover a secret that would change everything. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, but Laura barely noticed. She sat on the edge of her bed, holding a piece of paper that made her heart race. A hotel receipt she had found while tidying David's study. It wasn't the paper itself that hurt. It was the name written beside his, Rachel M., the same name she had seen in that late-night email. The date on the receipt matched his last business trip. For a long moment, she just stared at it, her hands trembling. The house was quiet, filled with that heavy silence that comes before something breaks. She didn't cry. Not yet. Her heart was too full. Anger, confusion, disbelief, all swirling together. When David came downstairs, adjusting his tie, he didn't notice her sitting there in the kitchen. "Morning," he said casually, pouring coffee. Laura watched him carefully, her voice calm but cold. "Did you have a good time last weekend?" He froze. "What do you mean?" She placed the receipt on the table. "You left this in your briefcase." For a second, neither of them spoke. The ticking clock on the wall seemed louder than ever. Then David sighed and sank into a chair. "Laura, please, just tell me the truth," she interrupted softly. He rubbed his forehead. "It's not what you think." Her eyes glistened. "Then tell me what it is." But when he didn't answer, she already knew. The truth hung between them like smoke. After a long silence, he whispered, "I'm sorry." Those two words broke something inside her, not because of their meaning, but because of how empty they sounded.